5 minutes.
Okay, well, welcome back to the committee, Mr. Robinson and Mr. Turnbull. I realize that you've had certainly a lot of work over the last 2 years, and I was very glad to hear that there are no outstanding concern papers left on the Max 8. But in the past, there were outstanding concern papers, in particular with respect to the MCAS system. So, can the witnesses describe for the committee what changes were made to the MCAS system while the plane was grounded that led to the MCAS concern paper being resolved?
Gentlemen,
Okay, I'd just like to maybe redirect the question a little bit. The concern paper that was referred to and discussed at previous committees was not specifically related to MCAS. It was our investigation of the stall characteristics of the airplane to determine the basic dependency of the aircraft on systems such as MCAS, but other aspects that comprise the stall identification system to determine whether the aircraft had inherent natural stall characteristics. In other words, does the aircraft require systems to intervene to protect it from stalls? At the end of that exchange, we concluded, thankfully so, that the aircraft does not. So yes, that issue paper was open and it was eventually closed with the result that we had expected, to confirm that MCAS was not required to maintain a stable aircraft.
Mr. Kram.
Okay, so then I guess in a more broader sense, could you walk us through what changes were made to the MCAS system that led it from being
Okay.
unsafe to being safe?
Okay, I believe I covered that in one of my previous answers. I'll just re-summarize it again. The ability for MCAS to fire has been protected. There's more inputs required than were in existence in the previous design. The system is only allowed to fire once per flight, where in the accident in situations it was firing repeatedly. The authority that the MCAS has to drive the nose down has been scaled back, such that even if it did malfunction, it is now within the pilot's full ability to recover and overcome those aerodynamic forces. Um, and there are comparative features or cross checks between the two AOA sensors. If they're out by a certain difference between the two of them, it will kill the input and prevent the MCAS from firing. And finally, the ability for the electric trim switch on the control column, if applied by the pilot, will immediately engage the MCAS, which in the previous situation it did not.
Mr. Kram.
Okay, very good. Mr. Robinson, you described in your opening statement that there would be new flight crew training for the MAX 8. Can you share with the committee what new training is now in place?
Mr. Robinson.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one of the key things, and it was a discussion by my colleague, David, that mentioned one of the unique changes that we had was the ability for crew to pull a circuit breaker to help alleviate some of the workload issues that are found within a cockpit. Well, if we had that procedure as an option to flight crew, we have to train against it. We have to make sure that the crew are ready, they understand, and they know how to move forward to address that circuit breaker pull. That's one of the crew procedures that we've put in place. There were also some negative training elements that we found, and negative training meaning that what it did was it prevented individuals in other failure scenarios from taking and using the systems that were available to them. So what we did was we looked at the curriculum and removed particularly a negative training element with regards to the trim switch. Those are key procedural changes that we've made that were unique to Canada's approval.
Mr. Kram.
Okay, and could the witnesses walk the committee through, in lay terms, how the certification process will be different for the next aircraft that applies to Transport Canada?
Gentlemen.
So I guess there's two pieces there, and and it is very important. So when Transport Canada certifies an aircraft, that's a Canadian main product. So that's a Canadian manufacturer that's coming to us for an initial type certification for a product. That wasn't the case here. We were a validating authority.
Okay.
From a certification component, we believe, and we've explained in a few of the responses that we've had, we believe our certification approach in Canada is very, very sound. We have a very, very strong oversight and relationship with our manufacturers, and I don't believe that certification approach is called into question here. From a validating authority perspective, that's what we were in with the Boeing 737 MAX. And we've explained what's happened here is there was a withholding of information with regards to the full impact of a particular system on an aircraft. What we did in this validation approach that we're speaking about now, that concluded back in December of this year, is to my colleague's point, Dave. We turned up the level of input and the level of involvement so that we were able to fully come to an understanding that when we validated this aircraft, we both could say, and Transport Canada could say, that all of our safety concerns are addressed. We worked with the FAA and other aviation authorities to ensure that the systems that were previously mischaracterized, withheld, not explained fully, were done so in this time.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Thank you, Mr. Kram.